of Coffee in Brazil. Great song. Yeah, so we're back in the studios and we have Dr. Michael Abu SAKARA in the studios. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and how are you today?
Doing well, sir. It's an honor to have you in the studio.
It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to ZTV.
Yes.
FM.
Let me find out, who is Dr. Abu SAKARA?
Oh, I'm a very simple person. I professionally, of course, I'm an agronomist. I'm a family man. And I'm also, I would say, a bit of an activist politically.
Okay.
Yes. Of course, we have, over the period, done many different things. But essentially, I've spent the last 27, 30 years in agricultural development. First as a researcher, then as a development person and manager, and then a policy. So we've covered the spectrum of it. But I'm also very interested in people having a voice in their society and shaping their own future going forward. And that explains my involvement in politics. Now, of course, agriculture itself is an interface between politics, the economy, environment, and how it impacts society in general. So it's not one of those sectors that can be isolated because it has to do with what kind of food systems you want to have, what it is going to cost people, how it is going to impact development in terms of industry, the living costs for people in terms of their food self-sufficiency, and also what is left in their pocket, and then of course ultimately it has to do with the health of the society as well. So it's a very I would say integrated area, and that's what made it very interesting for me and enabled me to develop a whole career over it over a whole lifetime. But it has changed significantly from where we started to where we are now. And of course, some challenges remain, but there are also new emerging challenges that make it more daunting. And especially for those countries that have not developed the capacity to deal with even the basic challenges, let alone the more daunting challenges that are coming in the future.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I mean, because you've done the research bit of it, let's go a bit into history. What was AGRIC then?
Okay, agriculture has always been an area of discovery. If you start with the basics of agriculture, when man was a hunter-gatherer, we just used to chance upon things and then eat them and then keep moving on. And then somebody one day found out that these things that we have been spitting on the ground, they grow. So why don't we plant them?
Okay.
And that basically is what changed civilization, because then it meant that we could grow enough food. So it was the first time human beings controlled their environment.
Okay.
Until then, the environment controlled human beings. If the animals move this way, we follow them. If it is not raining, we go over there, But when they started planting crops and then keeping animals, they could decide to stay in one place. And then, of course, they could decide to start building, infrastructure, and then people specializing in different things. And agriculture has always been at the root of that. And if you examine where we are today, those people who have a very strong agriculture usually have a strong industry and a more sophisticated economy, and even other advances in technology, because it is the foundation. Yes. If the foundation is weak, if the fundamentals are weak,
something will expose you. Something would expose you. I wouldn't want to go into that. Yeah, but that's a very serious statement. That because society is built on the strength of AGRIC, those societies that didn't have a strong AGRIC foundation are the ones that are actually struggling.
Yes, because you see, in this world, it's a competitive world. So you have to decide what it is you're coming to the table with that is going to give you a competitive advantage. And those people who initially had food surpluses were the ones who had the competitive advantage because they could get other things. You remember the 7 lean years and the 7 fat cows in the time of
Bible.
Egypt.
Yeah.
So the whole world was gravitating towards Egypt because they had grain stores. So when you are coming there, bring what you have. If you've got iron ore, bring it. If you've got gold, bring it. If you've got cloth, bring it. Then we will give you a certain amount of grain in order to get those things. And of course, we decide how much grain we're going to give you.
Exactly.
But the world has become more sophisticated since then. But the basic principle remains that if you're in a marketplace and you don't have anything valuable to trade, others will take advantage of you. What they say is that, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
You are either eating or you are being eaten.
Yes. So you have to make sure that you position yourself where you can be stronger. And that basically is what agricultural technology has done for society or for human civilization. As the technology has increased, we've learned how to control the seeds, control the soil, control the pests, control water, and then we've linked it to income, which is business. So it's not just an activity, it's actually a business. So we've linked it to, the amount of money that we generate, as well as securing our food security. And we see this even in our own situation in Ghana, where some of us who grew up in villages, we had farmers who had their homesteads, small farms, and that's why they used to have large families, because then you could cultivate a bigger area and hopefully have a bigger surplus. So the surplus is what they take to the market to sell. You no longer barter anymore. Now you sell and get money.
Okay.
So when they sell, out of that is what they use to pay their living costs, school fees, to buy soap, and all these other things which they need money for. So we've seen farmers use their farms to educate a whole generation of people who have now become doctors, lawyers, and they can go to factories and go to law courts and stay in radio stations, etc.
They all came
from the farm. Because if you don't remember, at the advent of independence in this country, the number of educated people were very few. In fact, the other day somebody was telling me that there was only one graduate from the north.
6 months, 1957.
Since 1967. So you can imagine, going back even before then, how rural agrarian societies were like. But they have been the backbone of how this country has been built in terms of educating people. First of all, keeping people alive.
Exactly.
And
they must
educating
eat first.
them. And then, giving them opportunities. So what we are seeing today is basically the stagnation of that capacity to impact on the lives of rural people. And if you want to know how agriculture has regressed, look at what those people were able to do then. And what
with the little technology they had.
And look at what they're able to do now in terms of the impact on them.
With all the
and
technology
their
we
children.
have.
Yes. You see?
Amazing.
So, yes.
Along the way, there was Operation Feed Yourself.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that and whether it should come back?
Well, you see, Operation Feed Yourself is often looked at in isolation. It was an intervention that encouraged people to grow their own food that they're going to eat wherever they can find it. And when so many people grow food, no matter how small plots they have, so ultimately you're reducing the amount that you are going to go to the market to buy. So the surplus in the market is more easily reached. And then you find that there's plenty of food everywhere. The food becomes cheaper, you know. And I'll come back to that point
Exactly.
again, you know, because making food cheaper is an objective, but you can't do it in isolation. There are other things that you need to do alongside it. But what I want to say about Operation Feed Yourself is that it was an intervention in the context of an overall reshaping of the direction of the country. And because that direction was clear and other things were put in place to support that direction, Operation Feed Yourself was successful. If it was attempted in isolation, it would not have been successful.
Okay.
So this lesson is what we must now learn in Ghana, that the interventions that we keep making in agriculture cannot be sustained and succeed if they remain in isolation. As I said at the beginning, agriculture happens at the interface between policy, the economy, the environment, and society. So if we don't put in place the other interventions that are needed to support, or the policy changes that are needed to support the interventions in agriculture, they will not stand. And I don't know whether you've ever watched this Chinese trick where they put plates on a pole and they start spinning them, and the guy runs from one end to the other. That can go on for so long.
Exactly.
But at some stage, you get tired and the plates will fall off. So if there's not a system in place to sustain those interventions, they fall apart. And that is why time and time again we hear, oh, there's this initiative in agriculture, there's ASIF, GASIF, this and that
PSIs.
and that. And then, so if all these interventions had worked, why are we still standing where we are? Why has there not been a transformative change, one which involves the evolution of agriculture, not just the growth of agriculture, but the evolution, a transformation from one type to another? But we are still in the same type where we were. It's just incremental growths within the same segment of evolution, sometimes even regressing.
Efficiency is supposed to lead to increase in productivity. That is what is expectation of becoming more efficient. If you look in our Greek space now as a country, are we as efficient as we're supposed to be, and are we therefore as productive, or if not?
Oh, we are a very long way from being as efficient as we're supposed to be. You see, what I'm trying to tell you is that we have not yet put in place the basics for agriculture to work sustainably, to provide the food we need at a cost which is profitable for the farmer and at a price which is affordable, not prohibitive, affordable for the final consumer. That is a continuous balancing act. You know, it is not something you do as a single day's event and then go back to sleep. You know, it's dynamic. And that is why even in developed countries, you've seen over the last couple of months or so, the farmers parading in Europe,
Germany,
driving tractors,
they
Germany,
use their tractors
everywhere.
to block the road.
These are they're well-to-do people. They're not poor people. Are you with me? So why are they and then even throwing some of their produce on the ground and wasting their time weeks on end? It is because at the end of the day, farming is not just about technology to increase yield. It's about whether you're doing it profitably or not. And if other factors are not in place for you to do it profitably and maintain your standard of living relative to other people who you're making food cheaper for, their standard of living is going up and your standard of living is coming down. That is not acceptable.
Of course.
Are you with me? So when I talk about the fact that we have not yet even begun, what I'm saying is that we have not put in place the framework, financial framework, the infrastructure framework, the trade policy framework necessary for our farmers to find it profitable to keep investing in technology innovations that increase their yields efficiently to bring food cheaper on the market for the consumer. If we had done that, we wouldn't be getting the booms and the busts.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Exactly.
If we had done that, we wouldn't be getting the hikes and then the drops and the dips. So the reason for those interventions is to take out the big variations, so that you get a steady, continuous increase, which is also parallel to your inflation and other things.
8:25. It's 8:25. Dr. Michael Abu SAKARA is my guest in the studio for ZED Talk. Today we're talking AGRIC and more. He's a well-renowned agronomist. We all know him. And we're talking about Ghana's AGRIC. If you're interested, you want to send me a message on 0544-321019, 0544-321019, or you can go to our social media pages on Instagram, on X, and on Facebook. It's at ZFMGH. On TikTok and YouTube, it's at Z Multimedia. And then our website is zmultimedia.com, where you can listen to this show live. There's been an argument, and I think this thing has been there since I was an AGRIC student in KNUST in the late 90s and early 2000s. Whether to support and make it more a smallholder farming bias economy, or to rather do a lot more of the large commercial farming. Where do you stand in this, and what policies do you think should, depending on which of the stands you go for, should push it?
Yeah. Well, you see, the two are not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
In other words, having one does not stop you from having the other.
Exactly.
And indeed, they can be managed in such a way that they're complementary. What is important is how your agriculture is evolving. Because as your agriculture evolves along the line of increased productivity, increased use of technology, economies of scale, inevitably, all over the world, what you find is that there are fewer farmers supporting bigger populations.
Okay.
In America, there's only 3% of the farmers supporting the entire people there, and they're even feeding us.
They're feeding themselves and feeding us.
Yeah, you see? Now you have a population in which you say, 60% of the people are involved in agriculture, and yet they're on their farms importing food. So you see there's some discrepancy there. Now the question is why? Why is that the case? And it is the case because, as I mentioned earlier on, the framework has not been put in place to make it continuously profitable for them to invest in increases in technology, etc., to increase productivity. Why? Cost of capital is too high. Look at the headline of your newspaper. Interest rates 30 to 47%.
Yeah.
In which world, on which planet, in which galaxy can you have use that kind of money for agriculture, which is a medium
to long term?
So already, before you even start the race, you are disqualified. Because you have to use this money for inputs, you have to use this money for infrastructure, you use this money for labor, transportation. So don't forget that at the end of the day, agriculture is a business. It's not a pastime. So after using this money, let's assume that you know about agriculture, you're efficient, and all those things. After using that money, your produce has to come to the market and compete with other people whose interest rates are not this. If you look around here, Nigeria has 26% interest rates. Our neighbors in Togo, etc., they have even lower interest rates, around 12, 10, something like that. Their inflation rates are also low, 6%. You look at your inflation rate, very high. So at the end of the day, the market decides who is crowned champion. Because if your produce is there at the correct price for the purchasing power in that market, then you are the one who gets crowned because they buy your produce and then you're able to reinvest. But if at the end of the day your produce comes there, it is not the preferred one. There are cheaper things that are to be bought. They buy those ones. Your produce stays longer in the market, so there's more spoilage, and the market woman will soon figure out that they should use less of your produce because they lose more in it and use more of the other one. So there's all these factors at play because it is a business world. And people sometimes like to treat agriculture as if it is something we do as a hobby. My grandfather used to do it. I'm also doing it. But if you want the agriculture to develop and evolve along that line, where both small and large commercial scale farmers are carried along based on productivity, and then at the end of the day, their competitiveness in the marketplace would decide how long they can survive. And at a certain stage, you find that there has to be a change in economy of scale. In other words, the smaller scale farmers will have to grow bigger. Because if you have a 1-2 acre farm, let's say even it's 1 hectare, are you with me? And you're now feeding a whole family out of it. If you don't expand, no matter how efficient you are, you won't be able to do that because costs are rising. The cost of inputs are rising. The cost of transportation is rising. So you have to be able to expand, which means that you have to get efficiencies as you expand. Because if you expand and you have low efficiency, you're only increasing your losses.
Exactly.
So these are the things which we need to take into account. And that is why training farmers is not just a matter of teaching them fertilizer use, seed management, post-harvest story. It's also about the management of the farm, for them to know when they're making profit, when they're not making profit, for them to know where they can make adjustments to increase their efficiency so that they get profitability. But there's no free lunch anywhere. Anytime you try to make an intervention, it costs money. And if the money itself is a prohibitive element, then you cannot use that. You may know about it, but you cannot apply it because it costs too much money and it's not profitable.
What policies should we as a nation implement to support smallholder farmers? Because they are the backbone of our AGRIC sector. What do we do?
Well, as I said, I don't think that we should think of our agriculture as small-scale farmers simply because they're in the majority.
Okay.
I think we should think about our agriculture as one in which we look at our population, we look at our total land resources as we have it now, and project into the future what the demands will be and how many people we need in the agriculture sector
to be able to feed
those people at certain types, with certain types of technologies, so that we now try to increase the capacity, the sophistication, or efficiency, improve the productivity of those technologies. And as you see a reduction in numbers of small-scale farmers relative to medium, we're not going to be like America where you jump from small-scale farmers to large
mechanized farming.
But you will have more medium commercial-scale farmers after a period. But everybody will be farming commercially. In other words, they'll be farming to make money. Okay. Nobody is farming to feed anybody for free. And the system has to support that. So now those measures which support small-scale farmers are the same measures that support large-scale farmers. When you go to the market, you don't go and say, oh, this maize is from a large-scale commercial, and then this one is from a small. No, it's there.
Yeah.
You look at the quality and pay the price. Are you with me?
It's true.
So at the end of the day, farmers need some basic things. They need the cost of capital to be affordable in order for them to be able to get and accessible, in order for them to be able to invest in the technologies, are you with me, that are going to give them bigger returns for their investment in labor. They need energy, diesel, transportation, which affects transportation, to be cheaper so that they can move these goods to the market at a more affordable rate. So the transaction costs need to come down. They need access to markets, not only the physical infrastructure for the market and post-harvest storage and all of those things, but the policies that decide the terms of trade within the market. Because when you mention markets in our part of the world, people go, yeah, let's build another market. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that I have other competitors. It's a global world. There are other competitors elsewhere. They're also bringing rice here. Let's go back. Those people that we send to our embassies in wherever they are, India, Europe, Argentina, wherever. Yeah. One day in the week, put the suit and tie down, go into their market, check the prices of those things that come to Ghana. So they're selling their price at this much here. How much are they selling it in Ghana? So is there a price difference? How does that price difference arise? Even now, the one which is here, what is the cost structure of that product? What is the policy that makes it that price? Then you are beginning to suss out your competition, and you get an image of what you need to compete with and the things you need to do to adjust. Now, some of the things they do, we cannot do. For example, they give these huge subsidies. Are you with me? But we can do other things that can put us in a better shape. You're putting how much is of the tax? Are you with me? How much of the price of fuel is actually taxed? A huge percentage, upwards of 40%. Are you with me? That same tax is carried in the taxi as is carried in the tractor.
Okay.
So can we take that tax off the tractor? Because we know that that is going for production. So in other words, we have to have policies that direct capital into areas of production, especially in agriculture, at a more affordable rate. Now, if we begin to do those things, and then we can talk about the training and the capacity building. That's another myth. Anytime you talk about agriculture, capacity building, another workshop, another trip, there's only so much capacity that you can have at a certain stage.
Exactly.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
And if you've been doing capacity building for the last 40 years and you're still at that stage, then what is the evidence of your impact? I can bring a Lamborghini into my garage because it's got capacity to travel, 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. But with my 1 gallon of fuel, what difference is that going to make? If I rode my bicycle, I'll come and pass the Lamborghini. You see? Yeah. So some of these common sense things, we have to start applying them in the policy framework. Yeah?
It's scary. Let me find out from you, the continental free trade after.
Yes.
Is it going to aid or hinder our AGRIC assistance now, based on the fact that you said, listen, it's a competitive field. They have lower rates and all that. Should we be worried about after, or we can use after actually to boost our AGRIC?
Well, you see, this after is good.
Okay.
It opens up our markets, especially those in Africa. But if you're not reaching Togo, why are you worried about Kenya? Are you with me? So we have to first sort out our regional markets. Our domestic market first, and then our regional market. If you cannot compete in your own domestic marketplace, in other words, our farmer who has produced A, B, C, D, our food processor who has produced X, Y, Z, when he brings his produce to the market, he's not competing effectively in that market. So if you're not competing effectively in your own domestic market, are you with me? How are you now thinking of jumping to Togo to capture that market, or jumping to Kenya or Southern Africa to capture that market. So if we don't get that framework right, are you with me, to make our own people competitive in our own domestic market, we cannot begin to hope, are you with me, to access these other opportunities which are ahead of us. It's like doing high jump. If they put the bar on 50 centimeters and you cannot jump that one, why are you asking for 1.5 meters?
I like that analogy. I like that analogy. We're not ready to take on even the bigger challenges.
We can do it, but we must be prepared, are you with me, to make the fundamental changes that we need to make. And that means recognizing exactly where we are and treating that with the seriousness that it deserves. Not the lip service that we want to give it for political gains.
Let's pick these fundamental challenges. AGRIC is going to be on land or water. So now let's pick it. What is our land ownership system like? What specific policy should we put into that space? So we'll pick them one by one. The inputs that go into AGRIC. Land ownership is what pertains now. Is it ideal to send us to the 21st century kind of farming?
Well, put it this way. If the largest percentage of your food that is produced here is still on small-scale farms, and they've been producing it all these years, if land had been an issue with them, they would not have been able to do that all these years. That is not to say that the land tenure system cannot be improved. It can be, but it is not the immediate constraint. Are you with me?
Right.
There are other constraints which have a higher order of hierarchy. Now, of course, somebody will say, no, land is the basic thing. And if we don't sort out the land, we will not be able to do X, Y, Z. Well, we've been doing X, Y, Z all this time. We may not have been doing it efficiently.
Exactly.
So there are different people. It means different people to different things. Different things to different people. If you're looking at, say, a foreign investor who wants to come in and invest in agriculture, etc., of course, land for him is the number one priority, because I cannot bring my money here and not know whether I'll be able to use the same land for the required amount of time in my project projections to break even and make some profit, say 10 years minimum. Yeah, it could be more than that, but let's say that. So what gives me security over that land during this period? Now, we have different land tenure systems in the country, as you know. You have a different system in the south here, because you were in the colonial period. You're the only people who have freehold land in Accra. But that you don't use for agriculture anyway.
Yeah.
And then you have, custodial land, in other areas, clan lands, etc., under stools. It works differently. And then you have the skin lands in the north, which also work differently. But in none of them, are you with me, as a young man, you go to your hometown and say, I want 1 hectare to farm, and nobody will give you that 1 hectare. So that cannot be used as an excuse.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Well,
but
to me.
On the other hand, if you're going to make huge investments, yes, they will give you that land, but you are not sure the terms under which you have it. But there are clear guidelines. You can process the land title. It is expensive, because mapping out land, can you imagine? You own a big farm and you want to map it. They'll charge you the same price for each acre that you do for building a small house. Now, how can you do this? But he's a surveyor. If you don't give him the money, he won't do it.
Yeah.
So inevitably, you delay those things to work to get money to do it. And you cannot do, 2 acres now and then 100 acres tomorrow. No, you have to do it.
Must do once and for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are actually the things that prevent people from having proper land titles. The processing of the land title is often prohibitive to the owner. So he holds it in a state which is not completely secure, because he cannot process the document. He cannot afford to. And that comes back to the cost of money. Because at that particular time, if the man is holding only 10,000 Ghana cedis, should he use 9,000 to process the land title? Or should he use 5,000 on the seed, fertilizer, etc.? And you process the land title and sit with it.
It's a no-brainer of a decision. The land title can wait.
You see? So that is why people often make these decisions, which are also risky. They come with their own risk. Now, the other issue people will ask about land is, okay, if I have a land title, does that mean that I can go to the bank, show them the land title, give it to them, and then I'll get a loan? That is if you're prepared to take this kind of loan. But let us say you are. You know, you go there, you show them your land title, and they'll tell you, oh, but do you have a house in East Legon Airport, somewhere like that? Because we will that one can do, but not this your land here. You know? Meanwhile, that is the business. You understand?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So again, the value of that land in the financial systems is often not taken into full account. It's almost discounted. They will look for other more tangible, more movable assets.
Yeah.
So if you have a factory there, supposing you have a mill on that farm, they will go for the mill. Yes, are you with me? But your vehicles. But as for the land, So when we talk about this land titles, etc., so after spending that expensive money to process it, you cannot even use it for what you want to use it for. So what is the returns to investment?
It's true.
So we have to look at these things in the context, because maybe it is not the land title physically itself, but the cost of getting it and what it can actually add in terms of value to your operations.
That's just for land. Let's go to water. Water management, irrigation.
Yes.
What should it look like? And what is it now, first of all? What should it look like?
Well,
now we know it's rain-fed. I mean, majority rain-fed.
Now, we've dealt with these issues before. But today I want to deal with it in a different context. You see, water is the basis for life. It's also the basis for prosperity. If you don't have water, you must have oil to be prosperous. You know? And most people would rather take the water than take the oil. You know? But having said this, it is important to note that this country is blessed with so much water. Our ability to control it so that it is available when we need it is our problem. You know, other than that, we have more water than we can manage. That is why anytime there's small rain and flood, then you're the same person complaining of drought tomorrow. You know, all that means is that you have not been able to control the water, and you've allowed it to flow harmlessly into the sea. And once it enters the sea, you cannot use it again. But if you control it before it gets into the sea, then you are able to use it sustainably. This is basic. We all know that. You don't even have to go very far. If you want to know, just cross the border into Burkina, where they have been controlling their water and have a more irrigated land than us. And therefore, that's why you buy your tomatoes and your onions and what have you from there. And it's cheaper, because they've also fixed their framework for systems for capital and those things. So it's not a question of just the physical production itself. The cost of controlling that water and how you do it strategically is what will give you the advantages. Now, we are lucky. You have the white Volta, flowing in the middle like that, together with the Dakar on the left-hand side of it. Then you have the black Volta, which has so kindly decided to go further out on the border with Ivory Coast and come back down on the border with Brong-Ahafo and Savannah and go all the way to Volta region. Then you have Oti, which has also decided to very nicely come down between us and Togo, and then come down and join the Volta. So from the 8th parallel, that's to say, going upwards, you have 4 rivers that have nicely separated themselves so that if you control the water, you can use all the land between them. Now, what else are you waiting for? Not to mention that the water which is now coming down the Volta Lake, coming through all those areas of Front Plains and what have you, all that area still lying down. In the dry season, nobody uses it. So if you don't control the water, then the environment will control you. That is the first sign of advancement. If you can't control your environment, you'll be subject to the environment.
You're describing something like God planted a garden.
Yes.
Called Ghana, give us all the water sources and give us the arable land and all that. And we're still struggling to produce food.
Yes.
For our own people.
Our minds are elsewhere. Our minds on where we think we'll get money quick. Our minds are still trapped in the mineral exploration. Oil exploration has now come, so our mind has jumped there too. If you look at the amount of investments we've made in the oil exploration, if we made half of those investments in agriculture, we'll be through. Now even you look at our problem with galamsey. And when you talk about water, you can't talk about water without talking about galamsey. Because this interface between mineral exploration and water supply is critical to our survival. Already we all know that at the side in Ankobra over there, they've polluted most of those waters through small-scale mining. Now, not being satisfied with that, we are now taking the small-scale mining and issuing concessions from Bamboy on the Black Volta all the way across the White Volta into upper East region. All those concessions that have been given willy-nilly, are you with me, now threaten the Volta Lake itself. Because that water is not like Ankobra, which only passes at the side there. You look at it, very dirty, and then you go home and drink your clean water. If what has happened in Ankobra is now spreading into the Savannah region and all these other areas, then that water coming down the Volta, you will drink it in Accra too.
Maybe that is the only time we would actually start taking this seriously. Because
it looks too late.
Yeah.
It will be too late. It will be too late. So we have to look at these mining concessions, especially in those areas, because it is also another sign of weak policy, where if you want to promote the agricultural investment, you must create the incentives that make it equally profitable for people to be involved in it, as opposed to abandoning that and going into mining. But you have not done that, and you're bringing the mining.
So they will jump to the mining.
They will jump to the mining. And then you talk about labor. Where's the labor? They're all digging underground there.
Doc. Yes, so it's about 8 minutes to 9. We have Dr. Michael SAKARA in the studio with us today. We're talking everything AGRIC. I know you're enjoying it. Edward Jojo Walden, my brother, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to know you are listening to us. Dr. SAKARA, let me find out the role you believe tech and innovation can bring, and if it is a way forward, or our basic are still so weak that tech and innovation might not even help.
No, tech and innovation are required as the foundation stage. So look, when we talk about technology and innovation in agriculture, what are we really talking about? What we're saying is, can we increase our yields per unit area? Can we increase the efficiency to our labor use? Can we increase the profitability for our land? Are you with me? And also get the returns on the energy that we use in agriculture. These are basic things. They're fundamental. Whether you're using machines or you're using your physical labor, it is still applicable. So what we are saying is that for us to be able to make those investments profitably, there needs to be a comprehensive framework. It is not just, give them subsidy on 2 bags of fertilizer and then, let's go home and wait for the result. Are you with me? It has to be a comprehensive framework that looks at the cost of capital, that's to say interest rates in your bank, are you with me, and accessibility to it. There has to be strategic investments in infrastructure that make transportation cheaper. You see, we have this long river from Akosombo all the way, it starts at Ada, all the way to Bipe and even up to Bui. Most of the countries that have increased productivity started with reducing transaction costs through cheap water transport. Water is the cheapest form of transport, followed by rail, followed by road, before air. Now, what have we been doing? We have left the water. Are you with me? And jumped to the roads, because in the roads, you get contract kakra. You know? And then, not that roads are bad. They have to be used correctly and made to the right places. But we all know what goes on in the road politics, where, if you are a more powerful politician than me, the road will come to your town, even though my town is where the production is. So that's why part of the reason we need to use the waterway system and the rail, because they are stuck there, and then people will develop around them. Are you with me? And transaction costs will go down. And that is the basis of your competitiveness in the marketplace. Before then, you have the extra space, the fiscal space now, to make the investments in your technology, in your mechanization, fertilizer use, management, all these other things that we can talk about. So they're not an end in themselves. Just because I've used fertilizer, now I'm profitable. No, there's other things that will decide whether you're profitable or not. And the job of the policymaker is how to set the framework so that those things create an incentive for you to make those investments. But if the incentive is not there, you can't afford to do that. And that is why you see people going into farming and backing out. It's like a Yoruba dance. Today we are there, and then look back where we are out. Look back where we are in.
Interesting. It's like a Yoruba dance.
Yes. You're going forwards and backwards.
That's a good analogy.
You are too young. You weren't here when Yorubas were in Ghana. So
I wouldn't remember.
You won't remember those. But at every social function.
There were Yoruba dances.
Oh, yes, and singers as well. So,
And they'll go in and out.
Yes.
Dr. Sakara, let's talk about post-harvest losses. It's also one of the big challenges.
Yeah.
What should we do about it?
Well, look, those are just another area of intervention. Agriculture is a value chain. You have the research, then you have the production, then you have the processing and the marketing. So it's not one segment alone. They are all integrated, and they all have to function within that framework, policy framework that we've talked about. And if you don't have that policy framework, then the investments in technology have less incentive. So now post-harvest losses are one of the areas, the low-hanging fruits, where investments can be made, one in rural transportation, particularly farm roads. Most of the food that we eat, if you had banku this morning before you came, it's likely that banku traveled about 5 kilometers from the farm to the homestead before it even came to the village market, before it went to the district market, before it went to the regional market, before it reached you in Accra. The first 5 kilometers of its journey was probably on some woman's head with a baby on her back, carrying that pan of maize, are you with me, when they finish harvesting. Now, you can imagine, say, 3 tons of maize, are you with me? If you divide 3 tons of maize, 3 tons of maize is 3,000 kilograms. If you divide 3,000 kilograms by 30 kilograms, are you with me? What are you getting?
Wow.
100.
Yeah.
Now, why do I use 30? When you take your bag and you're going on your holiday to New York, which I know you go, so don't tell me you don't. They'll tell you that the limit is 30 kilograms.
Okay.
Why? Because the man who is picking the bag
Cannot
they say
do
he gets injury if he lifts more. So this woman also should not carry more than 30
kilograms.
In fact, she shouldn't be carrying it at all. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that she can't carry more than 30. So that is 100 pails of 130 kilograms for just 3 tons, which you can get on 1 hectare very easily. Now, if she lives 5 kilometers away from her village, that means that she has to walk there 5 kilometers and walk back 5 kilometers. So that's 10 kilometers for each pail. So now multiply that 10 kilometers.
by the 100.
By the 100. What do you have?
That's scary.
1,000 kilometers.
Something that
So
a good
that
road
is,
and a good
if
transport.
you have only one wife in the house who carries the maize, she has to walk 1,000 kilometers to carry all that maize home. Now, if you're walking 1,000 kilometers, you after working the whole day, how is that? So that's why you had large families, so that all 1,000 kilometers
We
could be
share them,
divided,
everybody.
and then children will also be involved, etc. Of course, the men are always walking with the cutlass in case there's a snake, But the long and short of it is that this form of transportation from the farmstead, from the farm to the homestead, has been and is still an integral part of our small-scale farming. If you're the DC, why can't you say that, look, let's make farm track roads? Are you with me?
Yeah.
In my village.
Okay.
My common fund is going to be involved in farm track roads. So first, I'm going to get the young men, to cut the road north, east, and south of the village. Let's say 5 kilometers either way. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 20 kilometers. Each season, you divide all the young men. You cut 5 kilometers each. The next season, you do another 5. You go to 10. Then, okay, we'll start with 2 motor kings per each route. Okay? So now you give them some small loan, working loan. You be collecting the maize and taking the women to farm for this amount. You can start with coupons, whatever, or link it to a rural credit system so that they are going to the farm and coming back. They arrive there fresh, they're ready to work, and then when they're coming home, they don't have to carry. The goods will be carried back. And the young men will get something, and then the women will also be free.
Amazing.
That already is going to reduce your post-harvest losses. Because if you are that woman and you have to carry that maize, by all means, you kick some of it in the bush.
Yeah. Definitely.
And whilst you are busy carrying, animals are busy eating.
Yeah.
So, now I don't want to say it, but some herdsman will drive his cows nearby and they'll chew your maize properly
Exactly.
for you. So these are where all these losses have. Okay, not to mention the rodents on the ground that will come and the insects and what have you. So if we concentrated on that rural farm track roads alone as an intervention, you will see the reduction that will come. It is coming already, but it's coming in a disorganized way because since motor kings were introduced, particularly in the northern sector, you've seen the impact that it has made on people's lives, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
This is Motor King, a common motorcycle.
With
all our engineers,
something
we
at the
couldn't
back.
design Motor King here. We had to go all the way to China and India for it.
Dr. Michael Abu-Sakara is still here with us, renowned agronomist. We're talking AGRIC today on ZED Talk. Yes, as you know, it's past 9, 3 minutes past 9. We've eaten into the third hour of the show, the final hour of the show, that is, and it's important when a conversation is that important. Let's take a quick music break. When we come back, we continue from where we left off. Dr. Michael Abu-Sakara with us right here on ZED in the morning.
It's your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
ZED 101.9 FM. ZED 101.9 FM.
Leisure and business, we set out to bring high-value oriented programs that captivate the taste and desires of our audience. From the captivating airwaves of ZED 101.9 FM to the dynamic visuals of ZED TV and the innovative realms of ZED Digital and the incubation of advanced technological knowledge at ZED Tech, every facet of modern media is meticulously curated to engage and inspire. Also, let's not forget the New Finder newspaper, now under the ZED Multimedia umbrella, delivering insightful journalism.
Bethany. But we're still having a great conversation with Dr. Michael Abu-Sakara. But don't forget, today is Wednesdays. And what are Wednesdays? Wednesdays are Science and Tech Wednesdays. Today we're talking data protection in a growing digital world. That is sometime after 9:15. That's where the conversation will start. We'll be having in the studio Pearl Jechi, who is the Corporate Affairs Manager at the Data Protection Commission, also with Akrobotu Quintin. He's also the Director of Regulatory and Compliance. They will be coming in at 9:15 or beyond, slightly beyond 9:15, just so that we talk data protection in a growing digital world. This is still ZED in the morning, and the conversation with Dr. Michael Abu-Sakara, renowned agronomist, is here, and we're talking everything AGRIC today. We want to tap as much of the AGRIC information from him. I'm going to ask him a question that has been on my mind for years concerning AGRIC as an AGRIC student. Doc, it looks like whichever direction we will go will still come down to finance and the cost of it in this country. What was the reason behind the establishment of ADB? Doc starts laughing. What was it then?
Yes.
Because we know now it's just one of the universal banks. Should we set up an AGRIC financing bank?
That question can be rephrased another way.
Please help me.
And that one should go to the governor. The question is he prepared for us to have a separate window for agricultural lending, agriculture and industry, where their interest rates will be different
from this 47
to the other, universal commercial banks. So those will then be what we call for development purposes, and the others will be for trade and, commerce. That is the fundamental question. But we have taken the policy that no, we don't want that because it will be abused, etc., etc. But we shall put in measures, are you with me, where, there will be some development financing. But it becomes so convoluted that not only is accessing it difficult, but then the costs almost approximate what the others are. So those who have done it well have been very clear that, look, agriculture needs special funding, so that the processes, etc., they are the backbone of our economy. We want capital to flow in there, so we are going to fix the interest rates at this level for them, and then the others will be fixed at another level. Of course, they will vary according to market, but what I'm basically saying is that there will be two different levels, That is a decision that we should say. If we say that, And then there's no need for us to set up a special bank per se. Are you with me?
Okay.
It's
Yes.
a question of you go in there, you want the money for this purpose. It's determined that you're going to use it for that purpose, and it's given to you at this rate, wherever you are. Now, the question of agricultural bank is really about it tending to the needs of agriculture and farmers more than commercial trading. But if at the beginning the governor of the bank says, no, the same parameters that guide the commercial banks are the same parameters that I'm going to use to regulate you. Are you with me? Then no matter what my name is, I can't perform a specific preferential function for that agriculture sector. Simply calling me an agricultural development bank doesn't make me capable of doing that. If the framework, the paradigm that you've set for me to operate is the same as that for commercial banks. So we have to be very clear. And sometimes I don't know whether people just too shy to just say it as it is. That is what it is. And if that is the policy that you want to take, come out boldly and say that this is the policy I'm taking. There's going to be no preferential window, no two splits, and it is going to be like this. These measures that we shall take, they work within a certain level, but they may never be able to do what a split window would do. Then we all know where we stand.
Interesting. Because it's always bothered me. But I like that. I mean, at least you've cleared it up in my mind.
Yeah.
How would you ensure that Ghana's agri sector is inclusive and benefits all stakeholders, particularly rural communities?
Well, I don't think I will say anything different to what I have said before, because just like other sectors, agriculture is guided by certain principles, and those principles have biological aspects to them, but they also have financial aspects to them before the health and food and safety comes into place. But at the very beginning, you must have a framework within which you can competitively produce for the marketplace. Those are the things that guide everybody. Don't distinguish between large and small scale farmers. Everybody is going to be, you find your level in the marketplace. Yeah. So what you need to do is create an environment that gives incentives and supports your local producers and processors so that they can be competitive in their own marketplace. And that means, again, go back to the financing,
The money.
the training, the capacity building, the transaction costs, big part of it. Are you with me? And ultimately, of course, your trade policy in terms of what are the terms of trade in the marketplace. If you don't set that framework, then you're not in the game. You're just also running along. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And then don't forget, it's now a global village. So if you don't put your affairs right, other people will arrive at your doorstep. Now, goods just flow anywhere in the world, And once the goods land, nobody is going to say this is from here, this is from there. They will just, this is
Which
my
is cheaper.
pocket, this is what I can afford.
Yeah.
And virtually your own people vote against you, with their pockets.
Exactly.
And this is what you go into any, just take rice as an example. Go into any container, not even shop. I'm talking about containers.
Neighborhood, mom and
Container.
pop shops.
And just take a piece of paper and pencil. Count the number of different rice from outside there is there. And then count the number of local rice there is in that container. So even at that stage, the distribution network is not favoring our own producers. The distribution network is rather promoting
The foreign
ones from outside.
Doc, some have said that probably we also should be blamed as Ghanaians because our taste for foreign goods is what has led us into this situation.
Oh, that one is just a few people in Accra. The people in my village don't know anything about. When they see rice, it's Christmas. Any rice is Christmas. So, yes, the people with high purchasing power have certain preferences. But now, I'm telling you, and I've seen this with my own eyes, we have Ghanaian millers who can produce that quality of rice. And I've seen it, and I even buy from them sometimes. But most of that rice, I don't want to put anybody into trouble, ends up in Nigeria, where they pay good money for it.
Wow.
Some people are even importing that rice, can you believe, back to China, because it is claimed that it's produced in Africa and it is natural.
Amazing.
Yes, at a very high price. So it's not that we can't do it, but the question is, can we do it cost effectively, at volume, at scale? And a lot of the issues facing our millers, especially those in the Volta region, where the majority of them, even some of those in the western region. Can you imagine the rice comes all the way from the north? You've transported all the inputs up there, and now you're transporting the goods all the way back here. So again, there are reasons why their businesses are not so profitable. But even then, they can target a niche, particularly that niche where they want to compete with imported rice, and if they can have the added marketing, because the guy has already spent his money, bought his mill. If you want to install a good mill, it's upwards of $800,000. Again, the government is not going to say, oh, because you're producing milk for no, they will charge you everything. They will even help you with money. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you're producing the packaging, you have to have good packaging that will attract customers. Some people, they will get some support in marketing, what that allows them to get this good packaging. They even get some support in export in order for them to capture markets. But you have to sit here and struggle by yourself. So those are the things within that framework that knock our people out. We can't behave like the old days where we just rely on our natural advantages in our environment. Just like the Kenyans used to just go to London with no shoes
and win marathons.
Barefoot marathon. There's a limit to how often that can happen. Sooner or later, the others will catch up with you.
Yeah.
So we can't rely on that raw talent anymore. So we also have to look at the small areas. Oh, if this man has managed to put up this mill, can we say that we're giving him free airtime on ZED TV, etc., to advertise his gari and his rice? Are you with me? Every time I see, our big media people and film stars, rice, it's always a foreign rice. Why is he not doing for the local rice?
Interesting. Dr. Michael SAKARA, it's been an exciting conversation, and someone is saying we need to continue this another time. He's a very busy man, so I don't want to put him on the spot in that. But Dr. Michael SAKARA, renowned economist, was with us today, and we're talking AGRIC and more. It's been a most exciting conversation. We're honored to have you here. We should continue this. We should continue.
Time,
and the very best of luck in your political dealings as well. We hope for the very best for you, sir.
Thank you.
Anytime, any day, ZFM we would pass by for more conversations on this.
Fantastic. The next time I come here, I'll talk alliance.
Yes. That's a promise. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful morning, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, so that's been Z Talk today. AGRIC with Dr. Michael SAKARA. It has been an exciting conversation. Right after this, we're coming up with science and tech. And today we're talking data protection right here on Z in the Morning.